Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday live stream, a couple days before Christmas time. So we're going to talk about today, there's some good news on the horizon, which I think is very great for long-term price appreciation. But in the short term, let's be honest, the bears are pretty much in control. However, we need to look beyond that to what's happening. So first things first, as we can see here, the traditional markets are doing pretty well. S&P 500 up about a 1.5 or so over five. Let's see. No, it's actually over 1 day, 5 days, 1 month. Things are looking pretty good for traditional markets. Gold looking great as well. Crypto, digital assets, Bitcoin, not so much. And we can just see here using Ben's chart, bull market support band. Well, we fell beneath that a long time ago when Bitcoin was over 6 figures, and it continues to chop sideways and even sweeping the lows. So that's what's going on in the markets. But what is going on as far as like long-term? CFTC appointments. And this is big. This is big because it's the same thing that's been going on for quite some time as far as the crypto market. Nothing really gets done in the bull market. When the bull market comes around, we have so many people not so much building, but just living on hype. When we see the bear markets, as the bears are in control, we start to take a look at what's going on with the macro. What's going on with legislation? What's going on that could repel us or catapult us to the next big thing? And this is just part of that rationale. This is Mike Seeley, and he was just affirmed as the new CFTC commissioner or chairman. And he is extremely, extremely pro-Bitcoin, and not just pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto and digital assets. And you're going to see here in his commencement speech, or his commencement post, I should say, when he thanks specific individuals, one of those being SEC Chair Paul Atkins, which he's going to be working with quite closely. Now we can figure out what's a commodity, what's a security, and then what happens in between when things are in flux. Well, this is going to be between Mike and Paul to figure out, and it looks like they're going to actually work it out and do some great things. He also wants to thank Hester Pierce, and of course Hester, crypto mom, as she was delightfully referred to as, also one of the SEC commissioners, and is also heavy Bitcoin. Now, on top of that, once thanks Caroline Pham, who was the acting CFTC, and she's a little bit pro-crypto. But then this one took me for a surprise. He said, also for this, want to give thanks to the CFTC as acting chairman, or excuse me, Giancarlo, for setting an example of principle governmental or governance that inspired me. If you don't know who Chris Giancarlo is, his nickname is Crypto Dad. So this was a gentleman who was talking a long time before it was popular about stable coins and what could be the digital dollar. So if he's referencing these people, it's a pretty good chance things are going. And then also, of course, he lays it out quite easily. Today begins a new chapter for the CFTC. We're at a unique moment as a wide range of novel technologies, products, and platforms are emerging. Retail participation in commodities at an all-time high. Yeah, as we can see that with gold and copper and silver and everything across the board. Congress is poised to send digital asset market structure legislation, which will be voted on because it got pushed to 2026, which will be happening soon. That will cement the U.S. as the crypto capital of the world to the president's desk. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, under my leadership, CFTC, will conquer these great frontiers and ensure that the innovations of tomorrow are made in America. That's a very bullish statement, and I commend Mike for talking about that. This is great, but it does us no good unless laws and legislation gets passed. And I couldn't say it better than, say, Kevin O'Leary. This was him, I think this was in July or August 2025, stating what would happen when legislation actually comes through and defines some specific status. So just take a listen to this. Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank, about 50 seconds or so, and he'll pretty much explain to you why.
I love the idea of innovation. The money center banks have been sitting on their hands for years, crapping on the crypto industry, but it's not about Bitcoin. Nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's digital payment systems. That's the potential. That's the amazing opportunity we have here. Now, The reason that will be important and why we'll get price appreciation on Bitcoin is the minute that happens, it will signal the move to the next act, the Market Infrastructure Act. And why that matters to everybody in this room is we will finally determine, is Bitcoin a commodity or a security? And when that is determined and regulated, Katie bar the doors, $1 trillion will come and index that asset. Let's all hope that happens while we're all alive here.
Well, and that's a good point. Again, to determine, is it a commodity? Is it a security? What's happening? And as far as not just Bitcoin, I think we see that Bitcoin's a commodity, but it's the crypto market in general, which will pump everything up. So Mike being here, he is essentially pro-crypto. Paul Atkins, SEC commissioner, he's also pro-crypto. So what Kevin O'Leary said could probably come true in 2026. And it's not just these two gentlemen, but it's also what's going to happen with the SEC, or excuse me, with the Federal Reserve Chair. Take a listen to Howard Lutnick. He's the Commerce Secretary. About 30 seconds or so, and he'll lay it out for you.
The average age of a home buyer, first-time home buyer, was 33 years old. And now it's 40 years old. It's ridiculous. So we've got to do a number of things, and the president is on it. We've got to get those interest rates down. He's going to pick a new Fed governor, a new Fed chairman, and they are going to bring rates down. Why is the strongest country in the world have the 34th highest interest rate in the world? It makes no sense. Lower interest costs and then get in front of all these different regulations and state permitting, right? Think this through. We're meeting.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, that would be great. We get a new Federal Reserve Chair. Looks like Jerome Powell's on his way out. But again, that won't happen until 2026. So there's quite some time, and it's going to be bearish during that time. And I think it's going to be a little bit tough. Now, that was the bullish case I can give you. Unfortunately, you might want to just stop watching right now, because we're going to get a little bit more into some more bearishness moving forward. So that's it for you. Congratulations. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. That was the bullish news. And now, if you're an adult, let's take a listen to the bearishness of what's happening. So that was all great. But there's a response here from the president, and Lutnick said it. We got to start building. We got to, get people into homes, dropping the rates. I think we need to build more houses potentially. Take a listen to what Trump says here as far as the housing, because here in the United States, prices are out of control.
On housing, you talked in your address last night about housing.
Yeah.
Are you still considering a national emergency over housing?
I'm looking at it.
What would that look like? What would that mobilize?
There's two thoughts on housing. You have a lot of people have housing that, because we have such a strong time and such a strong market, their houses are very valuable. It's a big part of their net worth, their house. I don't want to knock those numbers down, because I want them to continue to have a big value for their house. At the same time, I want to make it possible for young people out there and other people to buy housing. In a way, they're at conflict. In other words, you create a lot of housing all of a sudden, and it drives the housing prices down. So I want to take care of the people that have houses that have a value to their house that they never thought possible, that have sort of made them wealthy and happy, and especially in their later years. Got to be careful with that. I want to keep them up. At the same time, I want to make it possible for people to go buy houses.
Okay, so first of all, that's great. I mean, it sounds reasonable somewhat, but it's false. I will tell you, I have a lot of asset valuation into my properties. And I can tell you right now, properties are overvalued. We need to drop those prices as much as possible. I think we actually need to create more houses as fast as we possibly can. And then when he talks about how he doesn't want to devalue the houses and things like that, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter unless you're actively flipping houses and taking massive loans against your house. If it goes down a little bit, let's say, because the average price right now for a house is roughly in America $450,000 per average house. Again, we're different in your states moving forward, but I think home ownership, should be the hallmark of everybody in America and across the world, quite honestly. So by him saying that, like, I don't want to raise too much for it, I think that it'd be best to rethink that and make houses a lot more affordable moving forward. Because the problem is if you don't have good housing and you can't house yourself, then as far as like cost of living, everything spirals out of control. And that's a huge problem. And actually, that's not what I want to see. I want to see this. So what I'm going to show you is a couple of just indicators or charts as far as like housing inventory. So when I said that we should have more housing inventory, if you take a look at it, I mean, we actually have more this is not houses, these are the median listing prices of the houses. And from 2017, it's just gone straight up vertical. You're looking at 249,000 for the average house listing or the median listing price. You know what it is today? Well, it topped out at 440,000. Today it's at a paltry 415,000. That's still way too high. In what, 8 years? Housing units started. As far as like building houses, the start of construction on new residential home, look how much it dropped off. Of course, this is the coronavirus, so we couldn't get a lot of supplies. Granted, that's true, but we're not even back to like pre-pandemic levels. Going back to, when is this? 1993? Are you kidding me? So, I mean, that's being generous going back to where we're at. We need to build some more houses. And then also housing prices increased or reduced. You can see that house price has actually dropped a little bit, like I said. Housing units under construction, a little bit more. Housing index, not the greatest. And this is just the data that I'm just flippantly pulling out. I just don't think that's a really good session here. And the reason why I say it is because of this. If we want people to come in the market, they need to be able to afford housing, to not be crushed, and to not actually have to work 2 jobs to get in that house or to that apartment or to that rental of a house that they have. This is from Kobishi letter. Definitely one to follow. Working 1 job is no longer enough to cover the living costs. The number of multiple job holders surged 500,000 in October, November to a record 9.3 million, which will lead me to my question. Who here works 2 or 3 jobs? Put that in the comment section. I'd like to see who that actually is. And if you are doing that, sounds like something I used to do before. But I'm just curious to see who here is working 2 jobs or more. And you can just see here, we're at an all-time high for multiple job holders. And this is going back to 2001. And why is that? It's because everything's so damn expensive, especially with, housing. How the hell can you afford it? And then people say, well, I'll just rent houses. Look, I'm a landlord. And I can tell you right now that for prices, the problem also with housing is because of taxes. And when taxes go up, I have to pass it on in some way to somebody else because I can only take so much of a hit. And what does that usually go to? Person that's renting. So I know people will say, oh, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. I think housing is one of the keys. And then lastly, before we get into a little Q&A, yesterday I showed this sentiment indicator. This is from the University of Michigan, Current Economic Conditions Index. And I showed you that the sentiment is worse than COVID, worse than the Great Financial Crisis, worse than 9/11, and worse than Black Monday, which is the 1980s, and even 1980 when the annual inflation was 13.5%. And I'm like, why is the sentiment so bad? And really, I just think it just comes down to political views. This was someone in the chats reminded me, and this is something actually Tom Lee said, that the Michigan Current Economic Conditions Index, it's pretty skewed heavily towards Democrats. And I'm not here to like play the political divide. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's some individuals who see this as the worst economy of all time, even though I got to tell you, some of it looks pretty crappy. And some of us say it's going to be the best thing of all time. So this is Republicans in a report a much more positive outlook. Republicans say it's around almost 80 as far as positive. Democrats say it's almost 36. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's that. I don't think we're worse than the 80s when everything was blowing up and you had Volcker in charge for the Federal Reserve. Or actually before that it was Burns, then Volcker. And we had massive runoff inflation. Everything was just being priced out of control. They got a hold of that. But it's worse than 9/11, the great financial crisis, and COVID. I just don't think it's that seriously bad. However, okay, last. This is the last one. This is the last bearish comment I'll make before we get to the Q&A. This is from Eric Balchunas, and I'll always give him credit for calling the Bitcoin ETF. He was right. I was wrong. I didn't think it would actually ever get approved, but it did, thankfully, too. SEC Commissioner Gary Gensler. And he says this was a report out from IBIT or BlackRock, and they shared data on the ETF. It says IBIT is the only ETF in the 2025 flow leaderboard with a negative return for the year. Crypto Twitter's knee-jerk reaction is to whine about the return, but the real takeaway is that it was 6th place as far as net inflows despite the negative return. This even took in more than gold, which was up 64%. That's a really good sign, in his opinion. If you can do 25 billion in a bad year, imagine the flow potential in a good year. I see this as different. I take a look at this, and what he's talking about is, this is all the ETFs. Looks like for BlackRock. Oh no, this is just ETFs in general, I should say. And BlackRock is very happy because this was their most successful as far as like for fees, apparently, that they took in for the BlackRock ETF of Bitcoin. However, when I look at this and I see, okay, the QQQ, VOO, IVV, VTI, SGov, these are all have positive flows. And the only one on this list that has positive flows and a negative return at almost negative 10% is Bitcoin. Am I looking at this wrong? Like, I know Eric is like, this is awesome. I'm looking at this like, I'm embarrassed by this almost. I mean, we had massive inflows. I mean, we didn't have too much of a sell-off, which means I guess there's a lot of people that, I guess that would be the bullish case. A lot of people are looking at this going, yeah, we're not going to sell because we believe in Bitcoin, even though we're at a negative year. And again, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. This is James Thorne, Chief Marketing Strategist at Wellington, PhD in economics. He says, one really has to pause and consider what is taking shape in market structure with sustained inflows from the Bitcoin ETF, which is right here, and accelerating institutional adoption across Wall Street. The asset is increasingly being intermediated and framed through the same channels that once defined the gold market. So maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Again, maybe it's just people are really convinced for Bitcoin and they're going to stick it out. I hope they are, like us, but we'll see. But I have my doubts. Anyhow, that's it for today. Like today's video, thumbs up, subscribe, all that great stuff. And again, as a reminder, I am short-term bearish, but I continue to buy Bitcoin every single day. That's it. So now let's get into the Q&A. Answer your questions. We'll go from there. So let's see. Thank you, Plato, for gifting a new membership. I appreciate that. Cliff says, my #1 indicator never hit. Rob is still here with us, grinding out videos. Retirement's boring. I retired from working for somebody else, gosh, over a decade ago. And yeah, I got to tell you, like retirement can get boring unless you have a purpose. But it would have been nice to take a little bit of time off from the daily, but not in the cards, not a big deal. And actually, I do get to do fun things. Like I just interviewed Ivan from Ivan on Tech. That guy, I got to tell you, so positive, great information, really good YouTube channel, probably the best thumbnails out there. And it was a real treat. So I'll be releasing that during my 12 days of Christmas when we're going to be giving away a ton of stuff. So just check that out when it becomes live. Let's see. Franklin says, the year hasn't closed yet, which is true. I got to show you this. This was pretty funny. Well, not funny. Maybe it's super bullish. I'm not for sure. But this This was Tom Lee. Listen to this one, because Frank is right. The year hasn't closed yet whatsoever. But take a listen to Tom here lay it out.
I think it's still very likely that Bitcoin's going to be above 100,000 before year end, and maybe even above one to a new high. So Bitcoin makes its moves in 10 days and every year. I think some of those best days are still going to happen before year end.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. Let me see. When was that? This is why I like Grok and using X, because you could just and bring it in. And it'll tell you, okay, the Expos theme, December 31st. When was that? Okay. This interview originally aired on November 26th. Damn, he was still that bullish on November 26th. Good for Tom. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, hey, great. Hopefully that works out for all of us. Yeah. And Stephen Trino says, oops, I don't know how that happened. Sorry. Well, I'll talk to Farrar. I think we're going to do a pullback to start 2026, markets being an all-time high, but the narrative being pushed out there is overly bearish, but either way, we win DC or D. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's what I think. Of course, we follow the rules like Farrar's talking about here. And the rules are very simple. And they're underneath me, and I created these in 2022. It's all gone. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. If you have the mentality it's all gone, then you won't, get over your skis. Everything's a scam. Don't leave things on exchanges. Don't use leverage. Take profits along the way. If we do that, what Farrar talked about, I think we should be good. And if that means that, if we've taken profits, I've talked about this in the channel ad nauseum, take profits. And if we're at that point and now we're just like, okay, let's have a bear year. Let's just say it's a full year. Some people say it's not going to be a year. Some people say it's going to be 3 months into Q2, and then we're going to get this banana zone or whatever. I don't personally believe that to be true. I think it's going to suck for the next year as far as price action, but that just means I will be buying every single day of Bitcoin and go from there. Anyhow, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Farrar, great rules, good segue. See, I used it. But there was one. Steven says this. And he's right. Tom's firm has actually been selling. Fundstrat. We covered this about a week ago or so. Actually, we covered this with Jerry Hall on Sunday, because Tom Lee comes out and says, yeah, Bitcoin will still be 100K at the end of the year. Okay, see. Maybe new to all-time highs in Q1. Great. But then Fundstrat put out its letter to its shareholders, or to, I guess, its paid members. It's like $249 a month. And it said, yeah, our price prediction is Ethereum $1,800, Bitcoin somewhere between 50 and 60K. But I don't know if they gave that as a prediction of this year. It seems kind of tight to do that. But then some people mentioned that, well, maybe this is a JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon moment, where JP Morgan comes out and says, hey, we're going to do a money market account, which we talked about this as well. Money market account for our institutional players and hedge funds. If you have 25 million or more in valuation, or as an individual 5 million or more, you can get into our money market account, which is backed or actually on Ethereum. And we talked about why this is a good idea. It's all about time. It's not about the rates and things like that. And JP Morgan is doing that. Now then, Jamie Dimon goes on to every conference he possibly can get into and say, hey, you know what? We hate everything. So for this one, Jamie Dimon did say that. We hate absolutely every aspect of Bitcoin, and it's a fraud. But yet here we are. All right. ETL says, why doesn't this work? Sorry, ET. Well, ETL asked me, first time asking a question, are you still buying, there it is. Are you still buying silver and gold? And the answer is yes, and I'm putting it into my Roth IRA. However, I just sent a message to the guys over at iTRUST. Did you know over at iTRUST, which is these guys over here up top that I have my Roth IRA, I also have them for my custodial services. Did you know that you can buy physical silver and gold to them and they will ship it to you? Yeah, it's crazy. So I just sent out a message to Ryan, who's my contact over there, and I was like, hey, how does this work? So probably doing that. I think it's through them and Kitco. They have some kind of partnership. So yeah, still buying silver and gold. Probably should get into copper as well. If you know anything about AI, it looks like it's probably going to do pretty well. Again, this is Leisure Real Estate, which is a good handle. Wow, Tom's firm is selling. He should stop appearing on TV. Again, I don't think I don't think that really affects like J.P. Morgan when Jamie Dimon comes there and goes, yeah, we despise Bitcoin and all crypto, and then they come out and roll out this money market that's built on Ethereum. Probably not a big deal for them, which I think is funny, but Leisure Real Estate could have a good point though. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. Ready to deploy. And this is the great way to end it. Merry Christmas to all. May 2026 be a blessed year. Keep up the good work, Rob. The D.A.N indicator never hit, which the D.A.N indicator is new people are supposed to come in and they wouldn't call me Rob. They just call me Dan, Digital Asset News. That didn't happen. Looks like retail is going to be a laggard. Look, retail is going to be gone for a while. And the reason is because they found a new narrative. And unfortunately, the new narrative is an old narrative, and an old narrative is gold. And it's also what's called PMs, precious metals. And I think because of the AI, which is the also new big thing, new shiny object, that's what everybody is getting into. And look, don't take my word for it. As far as like AI and AI companies, Berkshire Hathaway just a month ago put in over $9 billion, which I get is not that much, but if you look at the people who have the best track record, do a Google search for Nancy Pelosi and Google or Alphabet and how much she and her husband put into Google as far as because of an AI play. Anyhow, that was yesterday. That's it for today. Like today's video, like, subscribe, all that great stuff. Again, 12 days of Christmas coming up starting on Christmas Day. Be giving away a whole host of stuff, so pay attuned for that. That's it for this one. Thanks so much, everybody. I do appreciate you, and I'll see you